Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Dear viewers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Cosmic Proofs. During the last episode, we began talking about the history, the real name of the Nazarenes, which of course was the Nazarenes. So now we want to look into where their new name came from, which is Christians, yes?
Yes.
So before we begin, let me first begin by introducing our host for the show. Over to my left, we have Dr. Saud Fawaz Sha'lan.
Hello.
How are you doing? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How's life? How's everything going?
With truth is always good.
Yes, you're always happy.
Absolutely.
You can sleep at night, huh?
Absolutely.
All right, and over to my further left, we have Dr. Naif Fawaz Sha'lan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing?
May peace be upon all our viewers.
Yes.
And all the love from our heart to them.
Yes.
And the truth.
And the truth, so everybody can
And the
sleep at
proof.
night.
With truth comes transparency.
Yes.
And this is proven transparency.
Yes.
You follow the text, you follow the original text, and let them lead you wherever it leads you, because no predetermined position can be described for those who seek the truth.
Yes.
He who seeks the truth follows the exact textual origins. And this is what we're trying to do today.
Yes, and thank you very much. You've definitely been doing it. Yes.
Inshallah.
So now, so where did this word Christians come from now? So it's very interesting.
Yeah,
about
we have seen in the last episode the proofs of the true original name, that is Nazarene,
That the
Nasara,
text depicted it.
Yes.
Notre, Nazarin in French, Nazarinos in Spanish, Nazarino in Italian. And now we're going to try to see who and why and when and where and for what purpose
And how?
they
And how? Very important. Because
they changed.
the switcheroo.
the
I
conspiracy.
call it, I call it the switcheroo. You know, those swindlers in the street that have the 3 cups, and it's a swindling. Exactly, this is what happened.
This is
here.
exactly what they did.
Exactly, brother. Now you see it, now you don't. That's it.
Brother, the word Christian is a pejorative depiction and naming that was given to the followers of Christ, the Nazarenes and Nasara, the Notrim,
By its enemy.
by the enemy.
By the
You see
enemies.
now.
Unfortunately, there are 2 things that are now synonymous with Christianity: the name Christian and the symbol of Christianity, that is
The cross.
The cross is.
And unfortunately, both were given by the enemies of the followers of Christ, and they were depicted pejoratively by the name Christian, and the symbol of them being the cross also was given by the enemies of the followers of Christ. In the 3rd century, in the beginning of the 3rd century, around 225 or so, in Anatolia, and specifically in the town of Antakya.
Nowadays, Turkey.
Yes.
In other words, now, before it was in Syria, and in the last century, it became part of Turkey. In that area, the enemies, there was 2 enemies at that time to the followers of Christ. There was the enemies, the pagans, that are worshipping either Jupiter in the Roman times, or Zeus at the Greek time. Both of them were considering the followers of Christ are enemies. But they had also another enemy, that is the the Jew of the time, the Jewish people of their time, they were also considering them as the enemies of Christ, the enemies of Judaism, by giving them a name, a pejorative name. So in other words, they changed not only the faith, they changed the name of the faith, they changed the symbol of the faith, and it was a way to finger pointing them so that people would persecute them. So in other words,
it was a tool for persecution and a name calling, exactly as you would pejoratively call anybody in any society nowadays. They put,
it's like the N word in the United States.
Or what about terrorists? You know,
or now
that's
terrorists
yes.
that is given about
Muslims.
That's a word that we have to experience a lot, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we see now that the name Christian was given to the followers of Christ, the Nasara, the Nazarene, the Notrim, the Nazarin, and Nacerino. This in Antakya, Anatolia.
So this is where the conspiracy started, in a historical perspective,
yes.
and geographical perspective.
And it was started in a conspiracy
between three,
but in reality, the pagans were on one side, and the Jews were on the other, and both
the Nazarenes in the middle.
And the Nazarenes were between
yes.
the arrows of the followers of Jupiter and the followers of Zeus from one side, and the Jews on the other side.
Yes.
And they were in the middle, and both of them conspired against them, and they called them Christians, meaning the worshippers of Christ, which is exactly the opposite of the faith,
of the real faith
of Christ.
So the whole point, it was meant to be derogatory. Not
It was meant to be derogatory, and unfortunately, the church officially took that derogatory depiction and stuck it to the original name, that is Nasara,
yes.
which is Nazarene. So, in other words, the church conspired against the Nazarenes with the two conspirators, that is the Jews,
so
which
they conspired against themselves.
Not really, brother. Against
the followers.
Yes.
Not against themselves.
Exactly. They
because
followed
the church wanted them to be depicted by that name, because the church snowballed by changing the original faith of Jesus to a new faith about Jesus. And then they conspired with them by sticking this new name to them and changing the faith and adopting the name and the symbol that was given by the enemies of the followers.
Yes. And brother, what in very simple terms and very exact terms, as the church changed the faith, the original faith of Jesus Christ, they changed the name with it and the label. So in another word, it's like the chicken and the egg. Which came first? Which one came first? Is the change of the faith or the change of the name and the symbol? Actually, both of them were simultaneously, because the conspiracy would not take place unless you completely erase the original name and the original faith and replace it with a new name and a new faith. From the faith of Jesus Christ, which worshipped the one and only God, the creator of Jesus Christ and everything in this world, in this universe. And it was very clear message to the followers, to the Nazarenes that followed the words and the teachings of Jesus Christ, the original ones, into the new faith, which is, as my brother so well put it and so exact, about Jesus Christ, which means worshipping Jesus Christ and making him God himself. And with that, it is a must for them to have changed the label from the original label into the new label, which is even more precise also because it describes the actual worship of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
When you say Christians, you're saying, I am worship Jesus Christ. While the true original Nazarenes, they were following the exact words of Jesus Christ and the exact faith of Jesus Christ, and they were worshiping as Jesus Christ did himself, the one and only God.
Yes.
See,
So, in
brother,
other words,
the Nazarenes were following the original faith of Jesus Christ.
With the original name.
Yes, no, let me put it in a very simple term. They were following the true faith of Jesus Christ. And they were depicted as Nazarenes, as the followers of Christ. The church conspired against the Nazarenes.
Exactly.
That's what I wanted to stress
Yes.
now. With the enemies of the followers of Christ, meaning the enemies of the Nazarenes. So now you had three enemies of the Nazarenes. The true followers of Christ had three enemies.
Yes.
One pagan enemy divided into two, the
Pluto and Zeus.
the followers of Zeus and the followers of Jupiter,
Oh, Jupiter,
meaning the
sorry.
Greeks and the Romans on one side. And you have, on the other side, you have the Jews that said that he is not the true Messiah. And the church that saw a power for itself by changing the faith and the name of this faith of Jesus Christ. So in reality you had
They gave
a
themselves
triangular,
the role.
triangular
Conspiracy.
conspiracy. The pagans
Triad.
and,
Triad, yes.
and the Jews and the church, and the victims are the followers of Christ, the original followers of Christ, the true followers of Christ, who are the Nazarenes, who Jesus called them Nazarenes, and their enemies at their time called them Nazarenes.
Which the Islam and the Quran still insisted to bring back to the original faith and the original name.
And I hope the viewers see that every episode that we've done together has all been connected. Because the issues of the church, it goes back to
Absolutely. To
Paul,
Paul, absolutely.
and all the problems that we
To
discussed.
Saul.
That's why we
Exactly.
started with Paul and Saul,
Yes.
because he's the foundation of this
So
conspiracy.
it's all
And all of a sudden
You
he
see,
became
we
the
are
church.
developing
He's
with
the
our
church.
viewers.
And then the church became
Brother, we are developing with our viewers out of love and out of truth and out of proof.
Precision.
The snowball effect that
We're following
was
it.
started
Yes.
The
by
metamorphosis,
Saul.
as you call it.
The arch, yes,
The metamorphosis, as you call
yes, it's a metamorphosis, as Saud has put it eloquently, and it's a snowball, as the proof, the historical proof shows that it was started by Saul, the arch enemy of the followers of Christ, and then it was snowballing towards the church that kept on changing the faith, and the enemies, both the pagans and the Jews, the enemies of Christ and his followers. So we see a triangular, as we said,
Triad, huh?
as my brother has put it in a modern term, triad. This is a term in the United States, everybody knows about it, or I hope so. And
So really the changing of the name was like the stamp of finality. I mean,
yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
First you change the faith itself,
And then with it,
and
you
then
have to change
you
the label.
take
Yes.
take
Very
the
simple.
enemy's depiction and take it
This is-
and make it your own, and then stamp
just,
it.
Just
Yes.
brother,
Exactly.
I would say this is like a modern philosophy of new labels with new products.
Yes.
Part of the gimmick of marketing, when you market a new product, you have to market with it a whole new image, and you stamp it with a new label. So it is. This is part of the conspiracy, but it's
So the
very
people
professionally
basically don't
and
relate it to you.
deviously, very deviously, brother, professionally and deviously done by the church. So
Yes.
it is not by ignorance, but exacted by design. And this is what it's trying to prove.
Yes.
It is by design, and we will see now the proof in front of
All
our
our
viewers
audience.
now. They will see a word Are we going to?
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
We might want to wait.
We'll bring it.
But I just wanted to
we'll
mention one thing before we do go to break, because we have maybe 30 seconds. You know, the interesting thing is that they also they tried to do the same thing with Muslims.
Absolutely.
In the late 1800s, early 1900s, if you know the terminology, Mohammedan.
Yes, exactly.
But alhamdulillah, they
fuzzed out because it has no origin, it has no. But here it was very well constructed, and there is a very complex, which we'll see in Islam. It was so shallow that it's like a ricochet. It ricocheted.
So it went right back on.
Exactly, brother.
So with that, we'll take a break, come back, and we'll have more evidences that will definitely make your day. All right. Welcome back, viewers, to the conspiracy, right? Is that how we're going to refer to, but a real conspiracy though? Yes, a historical.
Yes. Yeah,
proven.
It's not an illusion of a conspiracy. This is a textual conspiracy.
Yes.
And
Proven.
I think any intelligent person that has been following it on TV, he would really see, because he's seeing the same text that we are seeing, and obviously he's reading the same text that we're reading.
Yes.
Here now, dear brothers, we'll see on the screen the Coptic Church have written a book of the history of the church, and in it they have the word Masih and Masihiyun, Christian and Christians, how they define it, and they show you how and when. It says the word Masihiyun, the word Christians, كان المؤمنون في أنطاكيا هم أول من أطلق عليهم هذا الوصف. Here it says that the followers of Christ in Anatolia, they were depicted and given this name by the enemies, in that area.
Yeah, they were the first people to be given this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first.
So they didn't call themselves. That's what they're saying.
Yes.
They didn't call themselves this name. They were called.
Yes.
By
no,
this
and
name.
here they say ولعلها كانت تنطوي أساسا على نوع من التهكم. It says
exactly.
it's probably it was depicted
originally
to them as a pejorative term.
ويبدو أن the church is admitting that
this was a pejorative name that was given by the enemies.
Yeah, to disrespect
of the followers
them, yes.
which is we rest our case.
Look what it says. ويبدو أن المسيحيين أنفسهم لم يتقبلوا هذا الاسم بصدر رحب.
And
there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
And it says that the
original
Nazarenes did not accept that name open-hearted, and they knew that it was pejorative.
Consciously fought it. That's what it says.
Because they understood the reality.
Exactly. Here it says ولكنه على توالي الأيام التصق بهم. And it says, but with time, this depiction stuck to them, and it became their.
Not really with time, with the church.
Absolutely, with the conspiracy of the church.
Yes.
The existence of the church, as a matter of fact. So it says, we see here, this is an original and important admission, historical admission, that this is exactly what happened, and the Coptic Church is emphasizing that fact and making it an exact happening that took place.
Here it says, we see that it was given as a pejorative name by the enemies, and they show, for example, that the Justinian, for example, was giving this name to the followers of Christ to show pejoratively. He says to Paul, now you're going to convince me, this is in the book of Acts 26:28, it says, now you're going to convince me to become a Christian, meaning pejoratively, while at that time they were called Nazarenes. And it says ولا يرد هذا الاسم إلا في نهاية القرن الثاني. This name, Christian, was not heard at all until the
second century.
later part of the second century.
The latter part of the second century.
إغناطيوس الأنطاكي إغناطيوس the Anatolian هو أول مسيحي يطلق على المؤمنين اسم مسيحيين. Now we see the conspiracy of the church that adapted the name of the enemies.
The pejorative depiction of the enemies,
Yes.
and taking it as the official name.
So the first one that admitted that from the church is Ignatius, while the elders of the church at that
They all
time
fought it.
they fought it and they considered it as heretic to be called in that name. And it says here كما كتب بليني. Bellini have written who is the
Historian.
the Roman governor of that time, of that area. It says that the emperor Trajan, when people came to him, he called them Christians. So the enemies were giving the name of Christians to the Nazarenes, and the first one from the church that adapted that name was Ignatius. So we see here the proof about
How it was introduced and how it was accepted and who picked it up and built on it, which is, along with the label came a whole new faith, by the way. A new label came with it, a new faith.
Yes.
Nazarenes, they were, the Nazarenes, they were followers of Jesus Christ, the original faith of Christianity, which worshipped the one and only God.
Yeah, monotheistic, basically.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
With the new faith came a new label to it, obviously, for it to be at the level of
Polytheistic.
Exactly. Not only that, of their conspiracy.
Yes.
They needed a new label with a new faith. So this transformation of the faith, also parallel to it, was a transformation of the name.
And it's kind of similar, like you gave the parallel, I think, in about similar to the N-word that people, but
Yes.
really the real parallel is to the slave trade. See, when they brought the slave, a lot of the slaves that they brought to America were Muslim.
Yes.
What was the first thing that they did?
They changed their names.
They changed their name because that way they have no connection.
No connection
to
to
their
their
past.
origins.
Yes.
To their
To
origins,
Islam.
and their
So
past.
this is something that they've done.
Dehumanize them.
Yeah,
and they
so
became-
this is
became
this is
subjects.
something
Yes.
that has
Yeah.
been
exactly.
used historically, systematically, to cut the origins and the truth of people, and to bring a new label and a new change completely of status to people by just erasing their history and
starting a new
and branding them with a new name and
a new
a
function.
new start.
Yeah.
Yes.
As we have discussed before, we have seen how the original name was Nazarene, and how historically they were known by that, and how the first and second century of the followers of Christ, they were called by that name. And we have seen the proofs. We have many other proofs.
We have seen also the resistance of the
Of the
faithful,
followers, yes.
of the faithful to this label
name,
that
yes.
were given to them by the enemy. So there was a conscious, actual war of faith and label between the original faith and the original followers and the original label, which was the Nazarenes, and the enemies that conspired to transform the faith,
Yes.
and with it,
Brother,
Well, the
we have
the
biggest
new
enemy,
label into it. And since that day, it became Christians, because now it's far more exact when you say Christians, because they are the worshippers of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Which that's not the original faith, nor is it the original
But it made it
label
easy
as
to
it is.
introduce all
Exactly,
this
brother.
polytheism.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's quite a...
In other words, this is the continuation and the building of the new faith that was started by Paul, Saul, the original transgressor of the faith, into a new faith, and he is the one that gave himself.
I would label him as the kidnapper of the faith of Jesus.
Yeah, which is
the
exact.
hijacker. Yes,
The
yes.
hijacker,
Hijacker, yes.
absolutely. And with it, so they continued this trend along by building a new blocks, which is a new label and more elements to the faith that was constructed later on by the elders of
Yes.
the church, not the elders of the faith, by the way.
So
To
this
the-
is a lesson.
and I,
yes.
that's an exact depiction. There are elders of the faith that resisted this trend,
Yes.
and they were obliterated in history, and the elders of the church that won
The opposite. Yes.
that won the battle and changed the faith and the label, which is nowadays much more precise,
You see,
the
the
faith.
elders of the faith were true followers of Christ.
which are
And
They were submitters.
they had no church, because the word church came as something against the religion of Jesus and the followers of Jesus of their time. That's why you have the Nazarenes, you have the Ammonites, you have many sects of the first century that did not have a church and that refused this word. And it's the followers of Paul in conspiracy with the
political times also.
at the first and second in the beginning of the second century, with the followers of the Greek mythology and the Greek faith, which is following a father god, meaning Zeus, and smaller gods that depend on the
Yes.
bigger god. And this, at the time of Paul, was considered as Christianity, and then it metamorphosed with the church and with the empire, meaning
The political
the political
Yes.
system of their time, meaning the Roman
Romans.
Empire, that kidnapped it again from the Greeks to
Yes.
the
Romanized.
to the it was Romanized.
Yeah, it was-
So
Yes.
with that we see that how it became.
Quite a history and quite a lesson, and we should really take a lesson from this. Where most houses are destroyed from within, not from without.
Not
So,
from without.
Alhamdulillah, this is with the proof, as it is well seen by our viewers, textual exactitude and precision.
thank you, viewers, for joining us for another great episode of Cosmic Proofs. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.